Hi everybody, this is Jesi from Literary Gladiators, and happy holidays! I hope everybody is enjoying their holiday season and their winter. Today I'll be going through my top 10 favorite books that I've read in 2017. I've read a total of 15, so it wasn't as many as I would like, but I'm still reading, as I hope you are. I'm going to do this as a countdown, so I'm going to start with number 10, and the number 10 placed book on my list is George R.R. Martin's A Feast for Crows. This is the fourth book in the Game of Thrones series, or I'm sorry, the Song of Ice and Fire series, technically. And it is a great book, but I had to place that at number 10 because it's not as exciting as the other ones. It's very much a build-up to the fifth book, where more exciting things happen, and I really like that one. So I included this because it is part of the series. I read all 5 this year, and I'm a really big fan of the series, not just because of the show, but the books are way, way better. And I'm going to be doing my own review and discussion for the entire series. Now that school's over, I have time to do it. I'm really excited to make the video, so guys, stay tuned to the beginning of 2018 for that wonderful tidbit. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it, so keep your eyes open. But yeah, Feast for Crows is number 10 on my list. Number 9. It's a little tough for me because I did really enjoy this book, but I had to put it at number 9. This is Dan Brown's new book from this year, Origin. Very big fan of Dan Brown. I love all of his books, especially his Langdon books. I just find them very exciting, very engaging, I guess is a very good word. And Origin, I have to say, I was surprised because it wasn't as surprising as his other books. I feel like his other books are very life or death matters, you know, get to the bottom, save the world, save the country, save everything. And this one was set up so much differently, and I think that's why I liked it so much. It wasn't like a crazy twist at the end like there usually is. It was a little bit more predictable, but in the same way unpredictable because it was predictable, if that makes sense. It's a little confusing saying that way, but I do highly recommend it. It was a great read, an easier read than some of his other books. Highly recommended. So that's number 9 on my list. Number 8, going back to George R.R. Martin and the Game of Thrones, the first one, A Game of Thrones. Again, this one's, I put it more towards the end of the list, because it's more of a build-up of everything to come. It's how everything gets started. So in some places it can be very boring, but it also shows you, you know, the cruelty of the world that the series takes place in. So it's definitely a good start to the series. Again, I really enjoy it. Honestly, I'm going to give you a little heads up. All 5 books are on this countdown, so just be prepared. Next, my number 7 is Dan Brown again. Lots of Dan Brown this year, sorry, and Game of Thrones, sorry guys. But The Lost Symbol. This one I found very interesting, and I can understand why they didn't make this book into a movie where they skipped over it and just went straight into Inferno. Honestly, they could have gotten away with making it a movie because I did find it very interesting, but again, it was a little bit more cruel than some of his other books, and a lot more gory details, I guess you could say. But I mean, nothing really all that surprising. Again, very interesting. I love Dan Brown, so I had to put this on there, and I really did enjoy this one very much. My number 6 book is Stephen King's Salem's Lot. I did this as a buddy read with Josh, and I read most of it in like a week. It's very catchy and very, very good. It's a nice little take on how Dracula would do over here in America, I guess is the best way to describe it. It's not actually Dracula. It's a different master vampire, but essentially it's, you know, the same kind of ideas. Very suspenseful, very spooky, and again, I kind of found, you know, what is worse is it the vampire or the sins of the people? And it raised, that kind of question in me. Was he there because of the sins of the people? Were the people, susceptible to the vampire because of their sins? It was a very good read by Stephen King, and I'm very glad that I read it this year. Highly recommended. Moving on to number 5, we went with A Storm of Swords. This is the 3rd book in the Tale of Ice and Fire series, or Song of Ice and Fire series. Ooh, I'm just a mess today. This one I feel is like the longer one, because again, a lot happens. It was very easy to get through. It wasn't so much build up like the other ones that I mentioned. Things are actually happening here, and I mean, I'm not going to give anything away, but a lot goes on in this book. And I enjoyed it very much. It's, battles and, treachery and betrayal and all those wonderful things that we love in books that keep us interested. So that was my number 5. And again, George R. R. Martin for number 4, his 2nd installment, The Clash of Kings. This is where the whole battle started. And where I feel like even though the first book is the series starter, this is where everything starts. And I really enjoyed this one very much. So if you haven't read the series, I can't stress to you enough, it is so good. So good. I can't wait to do my own book review and discussion on it. Very excited. So I'm going to leave everything that I have to say for that. Number 3 is Dan Brown again. And this one's Inferno. I adored this book. It was just, it makes you think a lot. And I loved the question that it poses in the book, which I feel was very controversial. And I even posted the question on Facebook just to see how my friends would react to it and what their thoughts were. It basically said the question, if the human race were to go extinct in 100 years and you could stop it by basically eliminating 1/3 of the population now, would you? And it makes you think. I mean, would you save the human race from going extinct, or would you just let the whole human race go extinct? It's a very, I don't know, it kind of blew my mind thinking about it, and I loved reading how things unfolded in the book. Again, I can't really say anything without giving anything away, so pick it up if you haven't. Read it. It's awesome. Just wonderful. Definitely one of my favorites this year. My number 2 book is the last George R. R. Martin book, A Dance with Dragons. This one's my favorite of all 5 because, again, a lot happens. It leaves you with a terrible cliffhanger, and it's just awful. So if you don't want to be disappointed that the 6th book isn't out yet, don't read this one. Because frankly, I'm disappointed that I can't read the next one yet, but it is very good. Again, I'm going to cover everything in a little bit more detail with my review of the series. And lastly, my number 1 book of the year, 2017, is Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I found this book on Amazon. I thought the cover looked a little funny. But when I went and read the reviews for the book, I was really intrigued. Everybody said that it's a creepy book, but not in the way that you would think. And they're so very right. I bought this book. I was like less than $10. I figured, why not? And I read it within a week. It was so good. I couldn't put it down. As you can see, it's a very short book, but the narrator, the main character, you see everything through her eyes, and she is so twisted and unreliable, and you're not sure if the things she's saying are true or not, or if it's fake or if it's real. There's something wrong, and you can't quite pinpoint it, and it's just creepy in the sort of way that something's wrong, and that you're inside the mind of a mad person. And I mean, how can you really interpret being in the mind of a mad person? I think Shirley Jackson did an excellent job portraying that. It's a beautiful piece of work in the creepiest sort of way, I can tell you. And I have to say, it is probably one of the best books I've ever read. It has definitely made it to my top 5 of all time. It's a fantastic book, highly recommended, very quick read, 146 pages. Like I said, I knocked it out in a week. I'm probably going to read it at least a dozen more times before I'm ready to move on to the next horror story, because this is just, it's so good. It's so good. Highly recommended, guys. Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle is my favorite book of 2017. So guys, that is my countdown for the 2017 books that I enjoyed the most. Sorry there was a lot of Game of Thrones and Robert Langdon stuff in there, but I did most of my reading with that this year. I'm looking forward to branching out, reading some more. I hope you guys take some of my recommendations and go ahead and, you know, get to reading some of the things I read. Like I said, especially number 1, my favorite, We Have Always Lived in the Castle. So good. Anyways, everybody, enjoy your holiday and see everybody next year. Keep reading.